Okay, folks, the time is 10:01, and I'm going to call the September 26, 2024 Planning Board meeting to order. We are joined by Commissioner Washington,
Good morning.
Commissioner Dorner,
Hello.
and I am Chair Shapiro, and we may be joined by Commissioner Giraldo in a bit. Please note that the deadline for all participant pre-registration and for all submission of materials and exhibits was 12 noon on the Tuesday before this planning board meeting. And registered speakers may join the meeting with the link provided in the email provided by the planning board office, or listen by phone by utilizing the call-in number that's provided in the email. And of course, anyone may join us by watching the planning board meeting via live stream. If you wish to speak or become a person of record, you'll see the instructions on how to do that on the screen before you. In addition to the commissioners, we are joined by legal counsel. We have our principal counsel, David Warner. Good morning, Mr. Warner. We also have Ms. Tallarico, Laura Tallarico, associate counsel. We have Jessica Jones, our planning board administrator, Rhonda Ford, our technical hearing writer, and Sherry Connor, the acting development review division chief. Ms. Connor, you there? Miss Sherry Connor. Because we ain't doing nothing without Sherry Connor. Mr. Hunt, are you in the line? Well, folks, this could be problematic.
Sherry is on her way.
Okay. We also have helping us with technology behind the scenes, Mr. Flanagan and Mr. Cron. Thank you, as always, for all of your support and assistance. So in terms of the order of cases, we're switching the order up a bit, Commissioners, so apologies for the confusion on this. First of all, item 3C has been removed from the agenda for today. When we get to regular agenda items, we're going to take up items 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 9 through 13 first, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. But we also have item 3D, which is a presentation by planning staff. That is going to, we'll fit that in when our planning director is able to join us, and it's helpful for her. So it may move toward the end of the agenda, but we'll play that by ear. So again, 9 through 13 first, then 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? There's no questions. Then we will run through, we will begin the process. Item 1, under Commissioner's items, I have a resolution of appreciation for a staff member who is retiring, Michael Sheen. Mike Sheen is with the Geographic Information System supervisor. He is retiring effective October 1st after 27 years service. Been involved in so many things all those years. He initiated and led the development of the GIS applications that we utilize so often, PG Atlas and our GIS online maps, all the development notifications, so much more. He's presented on GIS initiatives at local, national, and international conferences, and he also received the 2022 Planning Directors Award. He has been a real champion, a real leader for us. So thank you, Mike, for sharing all of your expertise, your commitment, and your leadership as well. And we wish you a very, very happy retirement. I don't think that Mr. Sheen is on the line. We have the Division Chief, Jim Canistra. Jim, anything you want to add to that?
Good morning, Chair Shapiro, and thank you for the comments on behalf of Mike and members of the Planning Board. I would just also like to acknowledge the major contributions that Mike made in both developing our GIS system and then leading the GIS system during my tenure here over the past 5 years. I think that Prince George's County Planning and the county at large has a world-class GIS system, and the contributions that Mike made will continue on with our data analysis for many years to come. So thank you, Mike, for your time and commitment.
Mr. Knister, for those kind words. And again, Mike, thank you for all of your service and all of your work on behalf of the commission and the residents of Prince George's County. So, commissioners, if there's no other comments or any comments on that, I would look for a motion to approve the resolution. Appreciate.
Mr. Chairman, with my congratulations to Michael, I move approval.
I'll second that. I'll mention that I had randomly pinged Mike about PG Atlas at one point. He said, "Oh, let's jump on a call." So we did. And this is, I think, last fall that we jumped on a random call, and he like immediately took me through like all these 3D renderings and stuff, just like on the fly. It was incredible, and definitely thankful for his fluid ability to navigate all those and just show me all the cool things that they were doing and they've developed over time. And we'll certainly miss his service. So best of luck in retirement.
Thank you both for the kind words. If there's no further discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thanks again, Mr. Sheen. Next item on our agenda, item 2, draft minutes of the planning board meeting from September 12, 2024. Look for a motion to approve.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. There are no legislative items for this week. We'll move to item 3B. We're going to go into executive session briefly. This is not going to be a long executive session. Pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Article 3-305, subsections B3 and B7, a closed session is proposed to discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters related thereto, and for the purpose of protecting the Commission's negotiating position, and in order to protect applicable privileges, to consult with counsel on matters related to legal issues related to board action. Again, this will be relatively short. I would guess around, I'm going to guess about 10-15 minutes. So I would look for a motion to go into executive session.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion? We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. So for the rest of the public, hang tight, 10-15 minutes. And for those pertinent, I will see you in executive session in just a minute.
To go and recording.
Ms. Connor, good to see you. Didn't mean to chastise you in public because clearly we had other stuff to take care of. Glad to see you.
Good morning.
All right, we're back in open session. I apologize to the public and others for the delay. The executive session went a bit longer than anticipated. We are on item 3C in our agenda, which has been removed from the agenda. So we'll go to item 3E. This is a Parks and Rec item, Historic Agricultural Preserve Preservation Program. This is the HARP program. This is related to the east side of Tanyard Road. Mr. Sun will be giving the staff presentation. I do have somebody who signed up to speak for this one and the next one. Ms. Nutter. No? Just want to see if we have anyone. Okay. All right. We'll see if somebody pops up. Mr. Sun, take it away. The floor is yours. Paul, we can't hear you.
Good morning, Chair Shapiro. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Sorry, I apologize.
Good morning. Apologies. Mr. Flanagan, if we can please go to item 3E. The presentation. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Connor. Thank you for that. All right, Mr. Sun, take it away.
Good morning, Chair Shapiro, fellow planning board members. For the record, my name is Paul Sun, Land Acquisition Specialist, Department of Parks and Recreation. You are correct. Ms. Nutter had another engagement today. She's not available, but I will be presenting on her behalf.
Okay.
So if we can go to the next slide, please. Both items are for two land preservation program easements. They're for the Historic Agricultural Resource Preservation Program, known as HARP. The first one is property in Upper Marlboro. It's located on the east side of Tanyard Road, approximately 3/4 of a mile northeast of the intersection of Tanyard and Croom Road. Next slide, please. The proposed easement is 29.6 acres, and the subject property abuts a HARP easement that was recently acquired last year to the south, and with another mouth easement further south of that. Next slide, please. Here's the ranking criteria for HARP. One more slide. The property scored 65 points. Next slide, please. Appraisals on this property indicate an easement value of $5,948.75. The owner has executed the purchase agreement. In summary, we recommend approval of this purchase agreement at the price shown. And if the board agrees to approve, we request that a resolution be added to the open or to consent agenda item later this morning. Are there any questions?
Questions for staff, commissioners? If there's no questions, let's just take them up quickly with two separate votes. If there's no questions, I would look for a motion to approve staff's recommendation for this acquisition, east of Tanyard Road.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, second by Commissioner Dorner. If no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you. And next, Mr. Sun.
Next slide, please. This is property in Croom. It's on the north side of Croom Road, approximately half mile east of the intersection of Croom Road and Mount Calvert Road. Next slide, please. The property is directly adjacent to an existing HARP easement on the south side of Croom Road. There's lots of other park properties and HARP easements in the area. Next slide. We can go one more. This is the ranking criteria worksheet. It scored 60 total points. One more slide, please. Appraisals were completed, and it indicated an average price per acre of $10,058. The owner has executed the purchase agreement. In summary, recommend approval of this purchase agreement at the purchase price shown. And again, we also ask that this be added to the consent agenda item later this morning. This concludes staff's presentation. Are there any questions?
No questions for staff. Commissioners, I would look for a motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner to authorize the purchase of the property on the north side of Croom Road through the HARP program. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Mr. Sun, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Both of these will be, as you have suggested, both of these will be on our consent agenda that we'll take up in just a minute. We have one more Parks and Rec item 3G on our agenda. I am pleased to say that what is before us is renaming of Lake Artemisia Park and College Park Community Center. We have Ms. Wright, I believe, Mr. Pettiford, who's going to be giving us this item.
Yeah, Tracy, can you join us on camera?
I'm here.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to.
Right.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Pettiford.
No. I'll defer to Miss Wright. She's our lead on this.
Okay. Well, good morning, members of the Planning Board. I'm Tracy Wright. I'm the Resource Development Officer for the Department of Parks and Recreation. We're here today because the City of College Park approached Prince George's Department of Parks and Recreation with a renaming request for Lake Artemisia Park and the College Park Community Center. So this naming request does not trigger our new naming policy, as it does not involve a proposal to rename something after an individual, commemorative, or philanthropic. And it does not involve naming rights, advertising rights, or sponsorship benefits by a corporation or a government. Rather, the proposal is for a historical name, and it falls outside the scope of our naming policy. Therefore, my presentation before you today are for informational purposes. Next slide, please. The purpose of renaming requests is for Lake Artemisia Park is to be renamed Lake Artemisia Park at Lakeland, and College Park Community Center to be renamed College Park Community Center at Lakeland. Next slide, please. Just get my notes. The purpose of the renaming is to acknowledge and honor the history, significance, and importance of the Lakeland community. From the beginning of the 20th century, the community of Lakeland was a vibrant, tight-knit African-American community. Due to segregation, Lakeland was the only place African-Americans were allowed to live in College Park. Unfortunately, this community was permanently altered in the 1970s and 80s as the Lakeland Urban Renewal Project displaced 104 out of 150 households. This request is a part of a larger restorative justice effort to acknowledge the community that was lost decades ago. Next slide, please. The Department of Parks and Recreation agrees with the City of College Park to implement the renaming in honor of this community, and we are before you today looking for your concurrence on the approval of this request. So this concludes my report. Are there any questions?
No questions, Ms. Wright, and you indicated this was for information only. However, I enthusiastically support this recommendation and what is seemingly the unanimous sentiment to move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had one question actually, Ms. Wright. I was confused about the College Park Community Center. I just want to make sure I understand. Will it be renamed the Lakeland College Park Community Center or the College Park Community Center at Lakeland?
They said the College Park Community Center at Lakeland was the request.
I think it was the other way around in the slides.
It's two names.
So it's two names. Right. So it's the name. Right. So it's two.
Yeah.
So it's the Lake Artemisia at Lakeland, and then it's the and College Park will become the Lakeland Community Center.
Okay.
Right. Sorry.
Good. All right. I think this is excellent. I appreciate the City of College Park pushing hard on this, and the restorative justice project that they have been a part of for years is quite transformative, and I appreciate it. I'm glad we can have a small part in joining them with this. So I'm certainly all in favor of this. This is just for information only. There's no action requested from us, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Because it was outside of the naming policy.
Excellent. All right. Commissioners, any other questions for staff on this?
No.
If not, appreciate the information. Good work, all. Good work, Ms. Wright. And we will move on with our agenda.
Thank you.
Let me just say also, just a shout out to Councilmember Eric Olson, who's been a big champion for this every step of the way, and certainly has spoken with me along with a number of other folks about this issue. So I really appreciate his leadership on this, as well as the City of College Park. So thank you, Ms. Wright, and thank you, Mr. Pettiford.
Thank you.
All right, consent agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose staff's recommendation or any board member wishes to discuss any of these items for A, D, and E? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, after consideration of the record for item numbers 4A, D, and E, I move adoption of the staff findings and approval of the items on the consent agenda in accordance with the recommendation of staff.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. All right, move on to our regular agenda items. Director Hull, we will get to your item in a bit. I'm going to run through a few of these regular agenda items, and then we'll tuck you in kind of in the middle of them, as depending on the timing. Okay. And I'm mindful that you have a bit of a deadline too later in the afternoon, so I'll be mindful of that as well. All right, so we're going to move on to our first regular agenda item that we're going to take up, which is item 9. Note this is a companion with item 10. Item 9 is a detailed site plan, DSP 22001, McDonald's Acre Road. The companion piece is item 10, DDS 23001. We have Mr. Gibbs, who's representing the applicant. We have Ms. Natalia Gomez Rojas, who will be giving a staff presentation. This is an evidentiary hearing, so I will be swearing folks in when it is appropriate. And let us start with staff. Ms. Gomez Rojas, take it away.
Good morning. I'm doing a quick sound check.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thanks.
Good. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I am Natalia Gomez with the Urban Design Section. Items 9 and 10, DSP-22001, AC-23017, and DDS-23001, titled McDonald's Acre Road, propose the development of an eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through service in an integrated shopping center. This application has been reviewed and evaluated in accordance with the superseded zoning ordinance. Next slide, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is Greg Smith speaking. And for the record, I live at 4204 Farragut Street in Hyattsville. I'm one of a number of folks who co-signed a letter to the planning board asking me to postpone today's hearing and extend the comment deadline and provide more transparency to the process. I also filed a request this morning pursuant to section 27-125-05A, asking you to postpone by a week because new materials were placed in the record by the applicant and by the agencies after the technical staff report was published on or around September 12th. All right, when do you plan to take up these requests and discuss them or not?
I wasn't planning on taking up the request, no, Mr. Smith. Mr. Warner, anything you want to add on this? In terms of our process, there was.
If Mr. Smith is requesting that the board consider continuance, we would, entertain that request. That's our practice. I know that staff and I have reviewed all the materials submitted by him that were submitted prior to the noon deadline, and didn't have any grounds to grant a continuance in our opinion. But it is something he can request, and the board can consider it.
I'm a little confused about our process.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Smith, hold on one sec.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Warner, I'm a little confused about our process in terms of our process for this hearing, because I've actually opened this hearing.
Right. Yes. So it's not going to be some kind of violation of anyone's due process rights if you hear the continuance request at this time, even though you've opened the hearing. That's fine. Proceed with Mr. Smith's request. As I said, staff's reviewed and I have reviewed, and we've both recommended there's no basis for continuance. The request Mr. Smith made is generally the same request he's made in previous cases where we have denied the continuance. So,
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, back to you. Yes.
Yeah, so in the past, the decision on whether or not to continue has been made by the board, not by staff. The staff can make a recommendation. It's unfortunate we submitted that request probably over a week ago and received no response. In the past, whenever I've been part of a process where an organization or an individual has asked for a continuance, that question has been taken up by the board, not simply dismissed by staff. And there are two requests here. One, actually, there are several. There was one that was submitted, I forgot the date, maybe September 17th or so, where multiple community members signed a request asking the board to postpone beyond October 3rd, if possible, without automatically approving the case, extending the written comment deadline, and also posting relevant materials online. We never received a response to that, and I think maybe to acknowledge receipt. There were also letters making similar requests submitted by individuals in the community about the same time. This morning, I submitted a request pursuant to section 27-125-5A, which states that if the applicant or a government agency puts new information in the record, submits new information after the publication of the technical staff report, then if any person of record requests a continuance, it'll be granted a continuance of 7 days. I filed that letter this morning because the file in which those new submissions were presented was posted by the planning board on its website only yesterday morning. And it contains letters from Mr. Gibbs on behalf of the applicant, and it contains 3 technical referral memos submitted by county agencies. So clearly new information has been placed in the record after the TSR was published. I don't think there's a question there. And the fact that file was posted online without notice, basically 24 hours before this hearing time, we couldn't have weighed in before the Tuesday noon deadline anyway on that. And by the way, I had asked for copies of some of those technical referral memos a while back and not received them. I was told they would be provided. So, and in any of these requests, we were told you can bring these questions up with the planning board at the hearing. So I leave it to you. The requests are on the record.
Seven of us signed that request, sir.
Right. So I'll just clarify. So like I said, we have all the materials from Mr. Smith requesting the continuance and the other individuals whose names are attached to the letter. Board has that. Mr. Smith has made the request. The applicant, of course, has a right to provide his opinion on this, and Mr. Gibbs is here, so he should be provided the opportunity to speak now, and then the board can make its decision.
And just to be clear, there's 2 different kinds of requests on somewhat different grounds. The letter I submitted this morning, and I apologize for submitting it so close to the hearing time, but again, the file was made available only yesterday. So it's somewhat different grounds, but similar requests. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. So we'll hear from anything else we want to hear from staff, council, then we'll hear from Mr. Gibbs, and then commissioners, we'll take this up. So Mr. Warner, do you want to hear from Mr. Gibbs first, or do you or Ms. Connor, staff, have anything else that you want to say on this issue?
No, I don't have anything else to advise the board on with regard to the request for continuance. I'd allow Mr. Gibbs to speak now, and then Ms. Connor can follow up if she has anything additional to add.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibbs, if you could come online and introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Edward Gibbs, an attorney with offices in Largo, and I am here today representing McDonald's USA, LLC, the applicant in this case. We would oppose any requests for a continuance in this case. This case has been pending for virtually a year. And in fact, when Mr. Smith opposed my last case on September 12th, he made reference to this case and the fact that it was pending. It's difficult to understand how he could feel surprised or need additional time because he referenced the McDonald's case in his testimony 2 weeks ago and said that that case had been on a permanent deferral. So nothing is new to anybody here. I think there's a reference in the staff report to one of the persons who signed the letter and who has signed up, where they indicate they interfaced with staff in March of 2024 and said they were going to be signing up to testify. So there's nothing here that's new. There's nothing here that's a surprise. The thing that surprises me is that the opposition would put 300 pages into the record that we just got yesterday, and they complain about 10 or 15 pages of letters that have been filed, and which are appropriate in my estimation and my belief to be filed with the planning board in advance of the hearing, and should not be covered by any continuance request. They mainly deal with the request to call the case first due to witness constraints that we have, and also deal with requests to revise or delete condition 3 from the staff report. So with that being said, we just don't find that there is any basis for continuance. It's just, in my opinion, a delay technique and tactic on behalf of the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Connor.
Good morning, yes, Chairman Connor.
Yeah, and Ms. Connor, and perhaps this gives Mr. Gibbs as well. The one thing that catches my attention is our Mr. Smith's point that anything that was added within 24 hours of this that came in after the fact, after the technical staff report was already submitted. Just want to make sure that we are doing things by the book.
Yes, so the information that has been uploaded is supplemental to this. It does not change the recommendation in the case at all. It's additional supporting documentation, which the applicant does have the opportunity to provide prior to the Tuesday noon deadline, as do the opponents in the case, or any citizens. So we do find that the information provided does not necessarily introduce new information into the record that has any impact on the recommendations that are being provided.
Thank you, Ms. Connor.
If I could just ask a question as a upcoming witness, and I concurred with Mr. Smith's recommendation.
If you could introduce yourself for the record, sir.
For the record, my name is Michael Wilpers. I'll be representing Friends of Sligo Creek. Isn't it simply a matter that the board, the Planning Commission, violated its own rules with the Tuesday noon deadline by allowing a whole raft of new documents to be posted 24 hours after the deadline? Isn't that the only issue here to be considered?
Not according to staff and our council, no, Mr. Wilpers.
Just to clarify, we did receive all of these documents prior to the Tuesday noon deadline. They are not posted immediately at Tuesday at noon because we do have to gather all of them. As you can see, the additional backup is over 300 pages received. So that does take us some time to organize and ultimately post to the web, but it was received in proper order.
Ms. Connor. Mr. Smith? Thank you, Mr. Wilpers. I'm sorry. Mr. Wilpers, anything else from you?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The question isn't whether or not these. Sorry, the question isn't whether or not these new submissions or documents that were placed in the record after the TSR was published change your recommendations. That's not the question. The language in 27.125.05A is quite clear. If the applicant or any government agency submits new information into the record, if a person of record requests a continuance, that person of record will be granted a continuance of 7 days. That's clear language. It's pretty mandatory. And we did this dance back in July of 2018, where the planning board had violated 27.125 in a different way by filing the TSR late. And that was grounds for remand by the district council to the planning board. So, the language is clear in the law. I think the facts are clear. It doesn't matter whether Mr. Gibbs is surprised that we're surprised, or that I raised this 2 weeks ago in the context of another hearing issue. All right, that's all I have to say. You can do as you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm looking at section 27-125. Perhaps Mr. Smith has miscited the section he's relying on. 27-125 of the prior ordinance does not say anything about a continuance. At least not the section I'm looking at.
Right. So I can clarify. So 27-125.01 is the section that Ms. Connor identified, explained very clearly why there isn't new information that justifies an extension for 1 week. So she's made that very clear. And the second request for a general continuance to have more time to review the record for the other reasons Mr. Smith gave, staff also is recommending denial. So that's where we stand. And I think it should proceed to the board for its decision at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, you have anything else you want to add?
One last word. I'm looking at the ordinance as posted online, and it says, if new information is provided by the applicant or any governmental agency after the technical staff report is published, in this case, the applicant did submit new material after the TSR was published, and 3 technical referral memos were provided in the file posted yesterday. Let me continue. If new information is provided by the applicant or any governmental agency after the technical staff report is published, any party of record shall be allowed a 1 week postponement if such party so requests. I'm not sure what section 125, Mr. 27-125, Mr. Gibbs is reading, but that's straight off of the copy of the code posted online at Unicode.
And I misspoke. It's 27-125.05. 27-125.05 is the correct site.
Right. Yeah. All right. So there you have it.
Thank you. All right, commissioners. I'm comfortable with staff's recommendation.
Hello, this is Alexi Boato. I live in Hyattsville. I think it's very disappointing. I live in Hyattsville, and I'm here with a group of neighbors that are opposing this development. I think it's very disappointing that you're not giving us an opportunity to digest information that was put in after the fact by this law firm. We're here on our own accord as a group of volunteers to try to do what's best for us, and we are requesting another week to digest this information as per your regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Boato. So I hear the concerns of the community. I am hearing loud and clear from staff and from council that we have followed our procedures appropriately. I don't have any concerns around that, but we certainly heard this case before. I think staff is clear that we're well within our bounds. This case has been floating around for a while, so I don't have any concerns around it, but I'm curious where you are, commissioners, with this as well.
Yeah, I'm similarly situated, Mr. Chairman, and I do think it appropriate for us to at least officially take action on the request for continuance. And I'm happy to, if so inclined, to make a motion in that regard at this time.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I'll just go ahead and I'll say I don't think it's a huge deal for us to delay this for 1 more week. If there's such opposition and such community concern about this, if it's been sitting around for a year, it's not going to kill the process to go for another week. I don't like the idea of regulations delaying cases substantially, but it's only 1 more week and we're still within the action limit date. So I don't think it would be terrible to delay it 1 more week if that would just help out the citizens.
Can we hear from staff and or Mr. Gibbs on that? Our counsel? What are the implications of delaying this for a week?
I would defer to Ms. Connor, because
we're all reading the things here. This isn't going to happen without 3 votes. So staff, Ms. Connor, others, Mr. Gibbs, what's the implication from continuing this a week?
Staff does not have any concern with continuing this 1 week and takes no position and would defer to the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, may I have 30 seconds to talk to my client, please?
Sure. Let's take a 5-minute break, actually. If you can put 5 minutes up the clock and we'll take a 5-minute recess, we'll be back.
And I do not believe that anything in section 27-125-05 would require a continuance. I don't think that that's what the intent of that section was meant to embrace. That being said, I am going to consent to the continuance because I don't want an issue like that floating out there. So I would consent to a 1 week continuance.
Mr. Gibbs, I appreciate that, and I'm actually, for what it's worth, I'm in the same place. I don't read this as we need to do this for technical reasons. I do not agree with this argument. I also want to get some. I don't think the extra week is a huge problem. I want to be respectful of that, and I want to get a little bit of clarity from staff about how we clean up this process. So it's more of a procedural thing for me. So Mr. Gibbs, I appreciate you being a bit flexible on this. I really do. So commissioners, I'm fine with having a motion to continue this for 1 week, if that is your pleasure. And what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request to continue GSP-22001 for 1 week to planning board hearing date of October the 3rd.
Second.
We got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner. Is there no further discussion on the motion? I will roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. We will see you all next week. Thanks, everybody. This is for, I'm sorry, this is for item 9 and 10. Consider that a friendly amendment. Is the maker of the motion okay with that, and the seconder is okay?
Indeed, and thank you for the clarity, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so this is for items 9 and 10 on our agenda, are both being continued until next week. So I'm going to switch around things on the agenda. I need you all to beg your indulgence for 1 minute. I need to step away for 1 minute. Hold on one sec.
Thank you, Mr. Dorner, for your support.
Thank you, planning board members and staff. All have a good day, good week.
Thank you.
Thank
You too.
Smith.
So we're going to move things around a little bit on the agenda. Like I was saying, I just want you to clarify with staff that that's going to be okay. We're actually going to take up item 3D on our agenda, 3D, which is the Countywide Planning Division Go Prince George's Countywide Master Plan of Transportation. We have our illustrious Planning Director, Ms. Lakeisha Hall, here with us. She and staff are going to lead us through that. I apologize for the rest of the folks in the public who have other items of the agenda, but we will take up 3D, and then after 3D, we will then go to, after that, we're going to go through items 11 and 12 and 13. And then we will go back to items 5 and 6. All right, so 3D, 11 through 13, 5 and 6. And Madam 3D, Lakeisha Hall, Planning Director, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me for the record?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, commissioners. It's great to see everyone here on the board. I'm happy to be able to present an update on this very important item. We have a lot of folks that are interested in this topic as well. And so we're going to talk about for a few minutes, Go Prince George's. Next slide, please. So what is Go Prince George's? It's an opportunity for us to update our master plan of transportation for the entire county, 500 square miles. And so what does that look like moving forward, not only cars, but people throughout the county? So it's the functional master plan that implements Plan 2035, which was adopted about 10 years ago. It also includes policies, recommendations for a comprehensive approach in how we take on transportation in a very succinct way. And then it also allows us to have our refreshed implementation tools to advance capital improvement projects and development review. Next slide. So this is also a plan that really helps us to advance more into the 21st century mobility and access. Since Plan 2035 was adopted, so much has happened in the transportation world with a lot of technology and advancement in how we move across the region. So we're able to look at how we move people and goods. We also are trying to make sure that we have a better succinct network for street services, pedestrians, and bike facilities. Next slide. So this is a very important slide here. I really want to make sure everyone is aware. We have a lot of information we're going to cover today on our website. So please go to our project website. You can go straight to our page, pgplanning.org, and you'll get all the information we're going to cover today. And so we're just going to do a quick overview of where we have occurred transportation advancements since 2009. So on our website, we have our overview, our timeline of this project, the resources. Super excited that we have the DPW&T, Urban Design Street Standards on our website, and then also other information in regards to public participation. Next slide. So this is a very important slide as well. So we have a lot of agencies throughout our entire county. And it's really important to know that in addition to cars, we have pedestrians, we have bicyclists, we have people that have disabilities. We have all types of ways that people move across our network. And so it's really important that as we're looking at this document, we're also mindful of all the partners that help to build our sidewalks, help to move our cars, our train network. We have a lot of cities involved, a lot of county agencies. And so this kind of gives you a quick overview of all those partners and their roles. Next slide. So the great thing about this is that our partners are coming from all different backgrounds, park and recreation, of course. We have, permitting authority agencies. We have a lot of agencies at the state level. We have agencies that work as well with the DC region. And so it's really important that as we're thinking about advancing transportation, we're connecting with all our agencies. I'm also building a great network of planning directors. And so we're also sharing ideas as well as I'm moving forward this document. Next slide. So community outreach, and so there's been several opportunities for us to engage with the community. This is also an opportunity as well as we're briefing the board. And so we had 3 countywide meetings a couple years ago that was held virtually. We also have an open house series that we're conducting as well to allow people to chime in and provide feedback. We also host activities throughout different opportunities. We're in the community a lot. And then of course, we're working with our agency partners and consultants. Next slide, please. And so the engagement process, once again, it's been going on for a couple years, and we're really excited about all the feedback that we're getting into our latest plan. And so I'm going to go very quickly over what we have accomplished since 2009. So next slide, we should have 1982 was the first time we had our plan that we had to update 34 master and sector plans. And so as you guys see a lot of the plans that we're updating across the county, we are putting transportation guidelines and information in those plans. And so that's now what we're doing with 2009. We're now updating the 2009 plan with all the master and sector plan transportation recommendations. And so there's a lot of things that we're doing, transit-oriented development, looking at concurrency, and also seeing how do we have more of a complete street network while we're dealing with congestion management. Next slide. And so as the planning board knows, we adopted Plan 2035 about 10 years ago. So of course, 2009, we had transportation initiatives. And so now we're trying to move that forward. So since 2009, we've adopted 21 master sector and transit district development plans. We've also adopted the 2017 Resource Conservation Plan, and then also Formula 2040. And so these are all informing into how we're moving forward our new transportation plan. Next slide. And so the next slide is going to show you all the master and sector plans, which covers 78% of the county. So we've been, over the last 15 years, working on transportation recommendations and guidelines, and now we're trying to bring all that together in one comprehensive document. Next slide. And so in some of the documents that you have seen over the last 15 years, you'll see that there's close to 3,000 policies and strategies. Quite a bit of great information that now we're trying to bring together and get rid of some of the redundancies under our master of transportation plan. And so this gives you an idea of where some of the efforts are happening throughout the county. Next slide. And so I'm going to go through the next 3 slides pretty quickly because it's just for information purposes. And so what we're trying to do as part of this effort is really capture the growth of the county. Our county is growing. We need to make sure that we're able to deal with the walkable densities, have regional market demand for walkable neighborhoods, and also make sure we support the job growth that we're able to contribute to the region. We have new codes and standards, as you can see in the middle column, and then also the new policies that we've been looking at in addition to the master and sector plans. Next slide. And so the next 3 slides, I'm showing on here 43 studies and initiatives, quite a bit since 2009. So much work is being done. And so super excited of all the studies and initiatives that we've been doing in this county. So if you can go to the next 2 slides, you'll just kind of get a glimpse of all of that information. Quite a bit of great work this team has been doing. And so as I close off my portion of the presentation, if we can continue to advance all the projects. This is pretty exciting and comprehensive list of information. So this slide right here is pretty important. So back in 2009, our transportation plan was in buckets. We looked at trails, bikeways, and pedestrian mobility. We looked at transit, streets, and then we had policy and implementation. What we're doing moving forward in Go Prince George's is now taking all those buckets and then looking at some of the new technology and innovation that's occurred in the last 15 years, and those things that had to adapt to a new way of commuting in the area since the pandemic. So we're looking at micromobility, air mobility. We're looking at how water mobility also may come into consideration. A lot of super commuters in the region, curbside management, TNCs. A lot of us now interact with them more than we did some years ago. So this is all what we're going to encapsulate in the new plan that we have coming forward. Next slide. So with that, I'm turning things over to Mr. Rowe to wrap up the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Hall. Good morning, Chair Shapiro, members of the board. For the record, Scott Rowe, Project Manager for Go Prince George's. In 2021 and 2022, our consultant team, led by Fair and Peers, have analyzed some of the challenges facing the county's transportation system, and as well as how we might capitalize, of course, on the many assets that the county has. Some of the issues that they've looked at are tackled here. As Director Hall said, our existing conditions report is one of the many things that's on our project website. We encourage everyone to check it out. With the information that we gathered through this analysis, the planning staff have been conducting additional analysis of the county's transportation system, challenges and opportunities, and we're using all this information to craft a robust implementation plan to achieve the goals of Plan 2035 by increasing access and connectivity to all of the great opportunities that the county has to offer. Next slide, please. Thanks. So as you know, Prince George's County sits at a unique location in the United States that creates tremendous opportunity for Prince Georgians, but also presents significant challenges. We're on the nation's most important interstate highway, I-95, and its primary regional alternate routes, the region's most important highway, the Capital Beltway, and the region's primary east-west highway, Route 50. Next slide, please. Prince George's County has unparalleled transit access and infrastructure that create opportunities for this county that no other suburban county in the United States had. These include 15 metro stations, which is the most heavy rail transit stations of any county in the United States that does not host its metro area's largest city, along with 11 Purple Line stations, 7 MARC stations, access to the nation's most important Amtrak line, and the East Coast major freight rail line. Prince Georgians can take a one-seat ride on transit to millions of jobs, all 3 airports, and other major regional destinations. How do we increase the access to this amazing system is one of the things we're trying to tackle through this plan. Next slide, please. We also have existing connectivity to the region's shared use trail network, which allow people to commute to and from work and other destinations by bicycle, as well as walkable neighborhoods throughout the county where people can attend to their daily needs without driving a car. Expanding those opportunities is a key purpose of this plan. Next slide, please. Throughout this effort, we have looked at what other jurisdictions are doing and what successful practices are out there that we can use to inform new policies and strategies to transform the county's transportation system into one that facilitates success for the county and our residents. Next slide, please. As you recall, in 2023 and 2024...
I'm sorry, Mr. Rowe, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Did Director Hull sneak in a Miami reference?
You know she did.
All right, thank you. Just want to check. All right, keep going.
So as you recall, in 2023 and early 2024, we in DPR partnered with DPW&T, the private sector, and the County Council to update the county's urban street design standards. The Walkable Urban Streets Act of 2023 requires that all new and updated streets in the designated regional transit districts and local centers be constructed to these standards, which I am proud to say incorporate nearly all of the comments you, the Planning Board, made on that legislation. Go Prince George's plays the critical role of identifying which urban street design standard applies to each street in these centers. Next slide, please. There are a lot of things that go into planning and what informs planning recommendations. Over the course of this project, we've examined the county's entire transportation system, from facilities and infrastructure to operations to capacity to funding, in the context of achieving Plan 2035's vision of a community of choice for the 21st century. The plan's recommendations will result from consideration of what we've heard from the community and our partner agencies, what our consultant team has learned from working in hundreds of other jurisdictions around the world, and what we, your planning staff, have learned about the county's unique opportunities and challenges from our years of experience working with our partner agencies, residents, and other stakeholders. What we hope will make Go Prince George's an effective and transformational plan is the close relationship and integration of mobility and accessibility investments to advance the county's land use goals. The best transportation plan is a good land use plan. Go Prince George's will build off of Plan 2035 and the great planning we've done in the county over the last 15 years to provide the connectivity necessary to facilitate success. Next slide, please. A successful plan must center around a set of shared values. Over the course of this project, these values have become apparent and govern our entire approach to Go Prince George's. First is prioritizing people. Successful communities are built at the human scale. How do we support that with infrastructure investments? Creating great places. The county's success depends on having a high quality public realm where people want to be. Creating an equity means safe access for all. We want to create an equitable network that expands access to opportunity for all Prince Georgians and provides safe access for people. Prince Georgians come first. We sit, as mentioned in the earlier slide, we sit at an important spot in the nation's transportation network, and we work with a lot of regional partners on our transportation system, but this plan has to prioritize the needs of Prince Georgians first, and that sustainability is paramount. Creating climate smart travel options sustain the county and the planet. Next slide, please. As we've been going through the planning effort, several overarching themes stood out from what we've heard from stakeholders in the public and from our partners. Most of the recommendations in the plan are anticipated to address one or more of these themes: ensuring that people are and feel safe while traveling, making sure that transportation decisions are made in an equitable manner, being at the forefront of innovation and creativity, creating a resilient and sustainable transportation system, the importance of collaboration in addressing our challenges and opportunities, and creating a 21st century community of choice for the region and beyond. Next slide, please. As you know, if you have a bunch of priorities, you have no priorities. The transformation of Prince George's County's transportation system to achieve a 21st century community of choice requires that municipalities, the county, the state, and other partners prioritize their investments. Go Prince George's prioritizes recommendations that achieve these priorities, ensuring great communities to live, work, play, learn, shop, and recreate, enhancing capacity, coordination, and public-private partnerships to deliver the implementation that we need, growing and traveling sustainably, providing multimodal transportation choices so that people have options on how to get around, and empowering people through increasing connectivity. Next slide, please. So there's a lot that goes into the county's transportation network, and we anticipate that Go Prince George's will make recommendations touching upon the areas of transportation, mobility, and accessibility that are identified on this slide. These can be broken down in 4 broad categories: how we get around, how things get around, how the system works, and how to implement it. Next slide, please. One of the most important elements of Go Prince George's are its facility recommendations. Go Prince George's will make recommendations for nearly every street, road, shared use path, bikeway, and trail in Prince George's County. Recommendations will be broken down into different categories of road or street based on their function, whether or not they are the main street in a community where people will walk, ride bikes, or take transit a lot, or whether they are in a major interstate highway conveying people and goods through the broader region to distant destinations. These are some of the elements of a street and roadway that we covered in the facility recommendation tables. Next slide, please. I'm going to blow past this slide a little. This is an example of just the type of table that we're evaluating all of the different roads and streets in the county, and looking at those items on the previous slide to make the best recommendations for our transportation network moving forward. Next slide, please. So the project team is hard at work finalizing a complete draft plan to share with our partner agencies for their initial review and comment, anticipated in November. Once we've received their feedback, we will make any necessary revisions to the plan and finalize it for public release. Per the conditions of our most recent county council extension, the planning board must act by January 30th, 2025 to grant the department permission to print and release the plan to the public, which we hope to do in the winter of 2025. Next slide, please. Under the current zoning ordinance, the planning board and the county council have the discretion to establish a joint public hearing at their convenience. The date of that hearing starts the clock on the legislative approval process. As with all plans, following the public hearing, the planning board will review the public testimony and make a decision whether to adopt the plan, adopt it with amendments, or remand it back to staff for further analysis. Upon adoption, the plan will be transmitted to the county council, where it will be approved in either winter or spring of 2026. Next slide, please. As you see, we have many people that you can contact if you have any questions, but we're happy to answer any questions you have now. This concludes staff's presentation.
Let me just start with wow. Very, very impressive. And you've hammered clearly how important this is and the role that this is going to play in the kind of transformation that we want to see for the county. So thank you for all the work that brings us to this point. This is a massive, massive undertaking. I think we all get that. From a question, and I'm speaking on behalf of all of us, I imagine, but there's so much detail in there, and I'm trying to figure out how we can weigh in ways that are going to be helpful for you. I don't want to speak for anyone in particular, but I imagine Commissioner Dorner is going to have some feelings around the bike ped elements of this. And, you know, just to make sure that we have the opportunity to digest and then weigh in. So just from a process perspective, help me and us think about that.
So I will start off with some recommendations. And so the current plan is about 120 pages. And so even though it brought in a lot of master plans and sector plans, I want to give you guys the comfort that with us having these themes and buckets, we're able to be very strategic. And so one thing I would recommend is to take a glimpse at the latest plan that we have, the 2009, and it's broken down by different type of facilities in our right of way, and then probably shifting more into those things where we're talking about safety, where we're talking about equity, and we're pulling those buckets in. So I believe that would be the cleanest way to do it. We're trying to make sure the new document does not get very large, to your point, sir, because we want it to be digestible and implementable as well.
Okay. So if we take a look at the old, and is there some measure of the draft of the new that we have access to, or is it still too much a work in progress for you all?
We feel confident that if at the board's pleasure, if you guys want to see a working draft, we can provide that, up in the next couple weeks or so, just so you guys can get an idea of the direction of the document before it comes back in the winter. That's something that we can to accommodate.
I mean, commissioners, if you're okay with that, as long as we know that we are not staff, so that, right, they do their job, but it might be helpful for us to sort of just be a sounding board. Does it feel like it's moving in the right direction for us? I'd be okay with that if you all are.
Yeah, I think the old document's going to be difficult, at least on my angle from the biking kind of aspects or like the trails, because a lot of the stuff just wasn't in the 2009 document. Like we didn't have any policy on allowing motorized e-bikes in the county or on any of our trails. Now we do. We didn't have bike share. Capital Bike Share just didn't exist in the county back in the day. And now we're looking at potentially putting in another 30 stations over the next year or two. So I think a lot of that would be helpful to see just like in even just draft form so we can get an idea of where it's going.
Okay. All right. So if you can provide that for us, and again, we will stay in our lane, our bike lane, related to that. But I think, I want all of us to be able to provide the input. I mean, I know I'm really, really impassioned about this as well. So any specific comments, or setting aside the process, commissioners, anything that catches your attention around that presentation? It's funny, I'm thinking less about the specific content of it all and more, how did you react to it, right? Because this is a beginning of a dog and pony show that's going to be getting out there, right? And does it feel accessible, digestible? Maybe some feedback for staff on this. Would that be helpful, Director Hall?
100%. That's why we're doing this briefing. So tell us what we can do better. Tell us what you guys want to see coming forward, if that's possible.
Well, I'll stop. It felt great. And I tell you, one of the things that struck me as you were going through the presentation was I could actually visualize how much movement forward we were making as a county. To your point, Commissioner Dorner, it's like 2009. And then it's like, I'm looking at this plan and it's like, wow, a lot has happened, to your point, but this contemplates so much in terms of the county moving forward, in terms of, micro-mobility. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool new term, but it felt really good. And I think just from a overall perspective, people hearing this, hopefully they will feel the same way, which will encourage them to become much more involved as part of the process. And thanks to you both as well as the entire team.
Thank you so much. And so one thing that I believe both everyone will appreciate, but Chairman Shapiro, I think smart infrastructure, right? 2009, we didn't even have any concept of smart infrastructure. That's right. Where the Miami picture came into play. So how do we even advance smart infrastructure? We didn't have the Uber, the Lyft, the ride share, car share. Right. So how do we start to interface in multi-modes? How do we advance commuter buses? Because we can't expand our roads anymore, right? It's not cost effective. So what do we do to repurpose areas? So this is an exciting time for us to really be innovative. And our horizon year actually is through 2050. So we're trying to see what we need to do to prepare ourselves for the next 20 years.
That's great.
Yeah, I like the overall idea of like what you guys presented, and I think it's good to look back at where we've been because a ton of changes. Quite a few people didn't live here in the county. I didn't live here in the county back in 2009. My house didn't exist. Like it was a warehouse around here. They bulldozed it down. Like there's been so many changes with residential, commercial, like all sorts of activity that it's nice to see kind of like where you're going from and to. Something that I would be a little bit careful with is that and I like the way of framing it, but the one integrated system, I don't think it's actually working. Like, it's not integrated very well. That might be a goal that we're trying to aim at, but the bus system is terrible in our county. Like, it's really hard to figure out when buses are coming, to get them here on time, partially because there's construction, partially because there's been a disruption from COVID. But it's not very integrated. Like, I can't get from where Peter's sitting right now to my house in less than an hour and a half. I have to go into DC, Metro out of DC. So I take a bike to the Metro down into DC, Metro out to where the Metro stop is, and a bike to the county office, because I can't get from the county office to my house safely or in any means on any bike trails. And the bus takes longer than it does for me to go on these multimodal nodes. I could take an Uber and it takes me 20 minutes to get there. But if I don't have the ability to do that, and we only have one car in our house, so I don't often do that, it's a long commute. So thinking about how we, and I should also preface that, like, I'm fortunate enough that I could pay for the Uber. Not everyone can do that, and particularly not on a regular basis. And the social justice stuff that Peter mentioned earlier is important for our county. We need to think about how we integrate that. So when we're looking for this one integrated system, how it's serving everyone, most especially like folks who just don't have the same kind of financial means that I might have access to. And then people who are also just on fixed incomes, they can't get around. Like last night at a budget hearing, we had senior citizens who were coming in and expressing concerns about one of our facilities because of limited budgets. If we begin to increase like costs of other things, they're not going to be able to travel to those facilities either, much less afford to be able to use those facilities. So we need to think about how we integrate not just the components of the system, but the components with the people. And it's fine to have that as like an ultimate aim, as this one integrated system, but it's not working really well now because you can't take the buses around, you can't take bike shares around, and just thinking about how we get to that point is going to be really important. But let's be careful about not implying that we have everything fixed already, that this is a work in progress, and here's the ways that we're going to try and go, and that's what our aim is to do.
Good. Yeah, one other thought that I had is that the overall tone, I found it hopeful. I felt like it was it gave me it was kind of inspiring for the future of the county. And I think that's an important message to send with a document like this. So I really appreciate that.
This is us tired and jet lagged.
Huh? Say again?
This is us tired and jet lagged. You should see how the tone usually is.
Well,
I've been up since 45 this morning, so. And it's so funny. I appreciate the conversation because transportation equity is so important, and I really, really want to see how we can advance that. Because affordability is transportation and housing. So how do we look at that intersectionality? And so I've taken multiple modes today. I took a plane, a car, and I'm about to walk to a building right now. So how do we do that for all of our residents and those that are coming to our county? Super excited about the feedback. Thank you guys for your time today.
Okay, this is great. All right, this is not an action item, so this kind of feedback is what they're looking for. You're going to send us a draft version of it for us to noodle over and give you feedback. I imagine there'll be another bite of this apple in a more formal way at some point, but we'll figure that out as we go along, okay? Mr. Rowe, Director Hull, thank you both very much. Appreciate it, and the rest of the team, of course, as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, we are on item 11 on our agenda. Let's jump right into it. This is preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23003 Penn Place 1. This case was continued from planning board meeting of September 19th, 2024. Mr. Haller is representing the applicant. I think we'll have we have Mr. Haller on video. Okay. And Mr. Bartlett will be giving a staff presentation. This should be brief. I don't think we have any opposition on this either. And we will it is an evidentiary hearing, so if we do have somebody, we'll swear them in at the appropriate time. Turn to staff for the presentation. Mr. Bartlett, good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon,
Mr. Chairman. That's true. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I'm Jason Bartlett with the subdivision section Item number 11 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision for Penn Place 1, case number 4-23003. The subject project proposes one parcel for 767 square feet of commercial development and 168 multifamily dwelling units. The application is also subject to an approved certificate of adequacy under case number 80Q-2023-003. No citizens have signed up to speak on this application. However, staff received one item of additional backup for this case prior to the noon deadline on September 17th. This item has been entered into the record as applicant's Exhibit 1 and is a letter from the applicant requesting a revision to one of the recommended conditions of approval, specifically Condition 8E. Staff has further received two items of additional backup prior to the noon deadline on September 24th. These items have been entered into the record as applicant's Exhibit 2 and applicant's Exhibit 3. Applicant's Exhibit 2 is a correction and replacement of applicant's Exhibit 1, in which the conditions of approval listed in Exhibit 1 were inadvertently repeated. Applicant's Exhibit 3 is a letter submitted by the applicant waiving the 70-day review period.
Okay.
Regarding Condition 8E, proposed for amendment in applicant's Exhibit 2, the condition as written requires a minimum 5-foot wide sidewalk along both sides of the roadway and throughout the site. However, this development does not propose any new roadways. Therefore, the applicant proposes to remove the reference to all new roadways and let it stand as requiring minimum 5-foot wide sidewalks, with the location being determined at the time of detailed site plan. An on-site pedestrian circulation plan is also required at the time of detailed site plan. Therefore, staff finds the proposed revision to Condition 8E to ensure sidewalks are a minimum of 5 foot wide is appropriate. In conclusion, subdivision staff recommends that the planning board adopt the findings and approve PPS 4-23003, Penn Place 1, as well as Type 1 Tree Conservation Plan TCP 1-017-2022-01, subject to the conditions contained in this technical staff report, to include the revision to Condition 8E as provided in applicant's Exhibit 2. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Commissioners, any questions for staff at this point? Seeing none, we'll turn to the applicant, Mr. Haller.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Again, for the record, Thomas Haller, attorney with offices in Largo, on behalf of the applicant. We do have representatives of the applicant's team on to answer questions. We have Mr. Rahul Sood with Velocity Companies, Mr. Chinmay Bias, and Michael Thomas with CV Inc., our engineers, and Mr. Michael Lenhart with Lenhart Traffic Consulting. This project has been before you. Before you will recall that we had conceptual site plan 87121-02 before the planning board in April of last year. And we are now before you on the preliminary plan of subdivision. And there will be a detailed site plan following, which should be at the planning board in November. You will also recall that we appeared before the board on July 25th for a preliminary plan of subdivision for the adjacent project, which is phase 2 of this Penn Place project. If I could ask Mr. Flanagan to go to slide 9 of 11 in your presentation, just to highlight, we did, there you go, go back. Is that 9? So that slide there, yes. And we had discussed this when we were before you in July, that this is part of a 2-phase project, this being phase 1, Penn Place 1. The project lies on the south side of Penn Crossing Drive, and these will be 2 affordable housing projects that will integrate together with a couple of different architectural styles to provide a diversity of affordable housing in this area of the county. We are very excited about moving forward with this project and look forward to bringing the architecture for phase 1 to you in November. I do want to thank Mr. Bartlett and the rest of staff for their assistance in addressing all of the site issues, and we are in agreement with staff's recommendations and the conditions, with the one minor revision to condition 8E that was in applicant's exhibit number 1. So we appreciate your support for this application and be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Just one correction for what you said. You're looking forward to bringing us the design, as well as the, since Mr. Giraldo is near, the dog park as well, when you bring the DSP to us, right?
That is true. We do have dogs accommodated on this plan.
Thank you. Just it's not before us, but it's just a heads up, right? On behalf of Mr. Giraldo. Okay, commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we don't have anyone who signed up to speak on this. I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, what is your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23003 and TCP 1-017-2022-01, subject to the conditions as outlined in staff's report and is further modified by applicant exhibit number 2.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Washington and a second by Commissioner Dorner. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner?
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Haller. Mr. Bartlett, thank you. Job well done. Thank you for all the work on this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Next item on our agenda is item 12. This is a companion piece to item 13. Item 12 is detailed site plan DSP 22030 New Carrollton Family 4. This is an evidentiary hearing. I don't think we have anyone signed up to speak beyond folks in the applicant's team. Mr. Huang will give a staff presentation, and then we will turn it over to Mr. Ship to see if there's anything to add from the applicant's team. Mr. Huang, take it away.
Actually, Mr. Huang is on leave, so I'm taking over this case. I'm doing quick sounds check. Can you hear me?
Ms. Garland, we can hear you well. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you. I guess it's a good afternoon now. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Ho-Jung Garland with the Urban Design Section. Item number 12 is detailed site plan DSP 22030 for New Carrollton Multifamily 4. This DSP requests development of 4 multifamily buildings consisting of 364 units and a 2-level parking garage on parcel 11 through 15. There's a companion application for the subjected DSP, which is item number 13 on agenda. That is departure from design standard DDS 24001, which seeks a reduction of the required parking space size from 9.5 feet to 8.5 feet width. As a matter of housekeeping, the additional backup includes 2 exhibits received from the applicant prior to September 17th noon deadline. Exhibit 1 outlines the revised condition proposed by the applicant. In this exhibit, staff would like to bring board's attention to 2 conditions as follows. First, condition 3A18, which requires the applicant to revise Pennsy Drive Section A to show the 6-foot wide bike lane is required by TDDP as a standard for bikeway details. The applicant is proposing to add, unless modified by the operating agency, with a written correspondence to this condition. Pursuant to section 27-548.08 C3 of the prior zoning ordinance, modification is required for the proposed revision to this condition. As such, applicant exhibit number 2 provides the justification for this request. Given Pennsy Drive is an existing public right-of-way and the additional right-of-way is not proposed, the dimension of the bike lane will be ultimately determined by the operating agency within the existing right-of-way, Therefore, staff finds this request will not impair the implementation of the TDP and recommends that Planning Board to approve this requested modification. The revisions associated with the modification will be addressed in the final resolution for this DSP if the Planning Board approved this request as follows. In finding number 7, under the general open space and streetscape standard and guidelines, on page 15 of the technical staff reports, add an analysis for bikeway details standard 2A2. Bike lane shall be at least 6 feet wide, page 157. In the recommendation section, add the planning board approval of this requested modification to standard 2A2 under condition 1. Approval of modification of the following standard on page 47 of the technical staff reports. The second condition that needs planning board attention is condition 3A2D, which is to request the applicant to remove the surface parking spaces located to the north of Building 1 to enlarge the outdoor recreation site area. The applicant followed up with the staff on Tuesday, September 24th, stating that they do support the staff condition. To sum up this presentation, Urban Design staff recommends the Planning Board adopt the findings presented in the technical staff report and approve the detailed site plan DSP 22030, departure from design standard DDS 24001 and type 2 tree conservation plan TCP 2-009-2024-01, subject to the recommended condition of approval within the technical staff report and the revisions by the applicant and agreed upon by staff in applicant's exhibit 1, except for condition 3A2D, as well as modification to finding 7 and the recommendation section as discussed in this presentation. This concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garland. And let me just say for the record that this is a hearing for items 12 and item 13. So I didn't read it in the record, but in addition to DSP 2203 New Carrollton, 22030 New Carrollton Multifamily 4, this is also departure from design standards DDS 24001 New Carrollton Multifamily 4. So given that, Ms. Garland, is there anything else that you want to add related to the next item, or what you're saying covers both these items?
It covers both items. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Garland. If there's no questions for staff commissioners, I will turn to Mr. Shipp, who represents the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Bill Shipp with O'Malley, Miles, Nyland, and Gilmore offices in Greenbelt, here for the applicant today. I'm going to do my best to help get you back on your schedule by being brief. We do have members of the applicant team here, but they're only here if you have questions. I do want to thank staff for all their work. We had some quite extensive work and conversations and meetings, and I think we got to a good place. As was outlined by Ms. Garland in her presentation, applicants exhibit 1, we had a couple of comments on the conditions. 1G, you should have in front of you, is to add the word applicable before development standards. 2A was really just working on some wording without substantively changing things regarding the rec facilities, just to clarify that certain indoor rec facilities would be built with that particular building. Seems logical, of course, and that the outdoor facilities would come online before any permits, occupancy permits for buildings after the first building to be constructed. And that was consistent with conversations we've had with staff all along. We just worked on the wording a little bit. We were requesting removal of condition 2D regarding the surface parking spaces. And we have, as indicated, we are no longer contesting that. So even though that's stricken on applicant's exhibit 1, we are not requesting that to be stricken anymore. We agree with staff on that issue. And then the discussion about condition 18 involves the modification of the operating agency. We just didn't want to get caught between what Park and Planning and the TDDP wants and what the operating agency tells us we need to do. We will propose consistent with the TDDP, but ultimately it's their road and we have to abide by what they approve. So we have a requested additional modification that goes with that. It's all been outlined in staff's presentation. We agree with their conclusions, recommendations. We respectfully request approval of DSP 22030, the TCP2, and the related companion case for the DDS for the width of the parking space, which is simply to, you're probably seeing it more and more, come up with a universal space as opposed to full-size spaces and compact spaces. With that, we are here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Shipp. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant or members of his team? No questions. I'm sorry, we do. Commissioner Joyner, yes.
Yeah, so, and this might be similar to what we did at, I think, the Kaiser building, the parking garage that's right over there, but with the long and short-term biking spaces or bays, are they going to be enclosed like they are elsewhere around the metro, or how are you going to deal with kind of like safety issues with the bikes?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dorner, for that question. We did have that conversation with staff as well. We have outdoor racks available on site. Of course, with residential units, some folks will probably keep their bike in their unit, but in working with staff, we converted some of the spaces inside the parking structure to be a secured bike locker area for people to keep their bikes, and they will all residents will have access to that, but it will be secured from the general public. I should also say that this component of this project is in addition to the buildings that we've already done in the town center. We have 2 multifamily buildings already that are market rate. This is an affordable project, and it will provide a range of housing opportunities close to our transit center, which I think is very consistent with the goals of our general plan.
Great.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's no other questions for the applicant, we have no one else who signed up to speak. I will close this public hearing. And commissioners, what is your pleasure on this item? And if it's to move approval, remember that we're taking up the 2 items together.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I move that we adopt the findings of staff to include the modification to finding number 7 is read into the record by staff. And with that, approve the modification of standards A1A through 1O, plus the addition as outlined in applicant exhibit number 2. In addition to approving DDS-24001 and DSP-22030 and TCP2-009-2024-01, along with the conditions as outlined in staff's report and is further modified by applicant exhibit number 1, with the exception of the proposed modification to condition 2D.
Commissioner Dorner, would you like to repeat that, please?
No. I'm very thankful that Commissioner Washington is on the motion-making side of things today, and I will second that.
Mr. Chairman, could I quickly ask if I missed it, but does that motion also include the additional modification in applicant's exhibit 2?
Yes, it does. I said that at the top.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But thank you for double checking.
Mr. Shipp, do not question Commissioner Washington on motions.
Noted.
We have a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Joyner. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Joyner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it, 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Shipp and team. Good to see you all. Ms. Garland, thank you for your work. Thank you for stepping in for Mr. Huang. And of course, thank him in absentia for all the good work on this project.
Thank you.
We'll next move on to item 5 on our agenda. This is detailed site plan DSP 05044-14 Steeplechase Business Park, companion with item 6 on our agenda. These are evidentiary hearings. We'll take them up as one hearing. Again, companion piece is DSD 24001, parcel 69 and 70 Steeplechase Business Park. That's the departure from sign design standards. We have Mr. Price is giving the staff presentation, Mr. Gingles, who is representing the applicant, I believe, if he is here, and we don't have any opposition on this one either. I'll turn to Mr. Price. Take it away. To you.
Quick sound check.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thanks for checking.
Great. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I am Todd Price with the Urban Design Section. Items 5 and 6, detailed site plan DSP-05044-14 and departure from sign design standards DSDS-24001 for Steeplechase Business Park is requesting approval for the development of a multi-tenant retail building on parcels 69 and 70. This application has been reviewed and evaluated in accordance with the prior zoning ordinance. The prior zone was I1. Staff would like to address a couple of technical corrections regarding the staff report. First, the applicant is listed as Atapco Beltsville LLC. It should be Ritchie Interchange LLC. If approved, the resolution for the DSP and companion departure will be drafted to correct this discrepancy. Additionally, the staff report lists the planning board action limit as September 30th, 2024. The correct action limit is September 29th, 2024. The urban design section recommends the planning board adopt the findings of the technical staff report and approve DSP-05044-14 and DSDS-24001 with the conditions found in the report. The applicant has reviewed the technical staff report and is in full agreement. To date, staff has not received any community feedback or opposition to this application. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Commissioners, if there's no questions for staff, we will turn to the applicant, Mr. Gingles. Take it away.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Andre Gingles with offices in Laurel, Maryland. Thank you, Mr. Price, for that report, and we concur with all that Mr. Price has placed in the report. I'm here to answer any questions if necessary, and as usual, try to keep my presentation to less than my age and years.
Thank you, Mr. Gingles. I appreciate that. Gave me pause for a second. We have no one else who signed up to speak on this, commissioners. If there's no questions for the applicant or no questions for staff, then I will close this public hearing. And what is your pleasure on these two companion items?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff to include the technical corrections as read into the record by staff, and with that approve DSP-05044-14 and DSDS-24001, subject to the condition as outlined in staff's report.
Second.
And a motion by Commissioner Washington and a second by Commissioner Dorner. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Gingles. Thank you, Mr. Price. We move quickly here in part because staff does such a good job. So thank you, Mr. Price, to you and the rest of the team that was involved in this. Next, we have item 7 on our agenda. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege here and switch this around. Ms. Scudder, I apologize, but let's do item 8 real quick on our agenda, and then we will end with item 7. So switching the order, apologies, but let's go to item 8. This is a preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23 047, Mountain of Fire and Miracles Ministries. We have Mr. Bartlett who's giving a staff presentation, Mr. Parker who will be representing the applicant. This is an evidentiary hearing. I don't believe we have anyone who's signed up to speak beyond members of the applicant's team, but we will see, and I'll swear folks in as appropriate, if appropriate, when the time is coming. So turn to Mr. Bartlett for a brief staff presentation, and then we'll hear from Mr. Parker. Mr. Bartlett.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I'm Jason Bartlett with the subdivision section.
Mr. Bartlett, I'm sorry, it may just be me, but your voice is a little bit weak.
Hey, same here.
My apologies. Is that better?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Okay, let me just start from the top. Well, I'll just start past the introduction. Item number 8 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision for Mountain of Fire and Miracles Ministries, case number 4-23047. The subject project proposes one parcel for 44,094 square feet of institutional development. This application is also subject to an approved certificate of adequacy under case number 80Q-2023-084. No citizens have signed up to speak on this application. However, staff has received one item of additional backup for this case prior to the noon deadline on September 24th. This item has been entered into the record as Opponent's Exhibit 1 and is an email from Miss Latoya Seeley, a resident of the Westview subdivision, the entrance of which is immediately adjacent to the entrance of the subject project, excuse me, on the opposite side of Church Road. In her email, Ms. Seeley asked the planning board to disapprove this preliminary plan of subdivision based off 6 major concerns that she enumerates in her email, each of which have bulleted supporting concerns. Staff has reviewed Ms. Seeley's concerns and find the applicant has met all the requirements of the subdivision regulations to gain approval, and that the subdivision as proposed is also in conformance with those regulations. In conclusion, subdivision staff recommends that the planning board adopt the findings and approve PPS 4-23047, Mountain of Fire and Miracles Ministries, as well as Type 1 Tree Conservation Plan TCP 1-018-2024, and a variance from section 25-122B1G for the removal of 11 specimen trees, subject to the conditions contained in the technical staff report. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Appreciate that. Commissioners, any questions for staff? No questions. We'll turn to the applicant, Mr. Parker. Good to see you. Take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Microphone check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. For the record, Majette Parker, an attorney with the law office of Majette S. Parker with offices in Camp Spring, Maryland. I'm joined here today with the applicant's team of Mountain of Fire and Miracles Ministries, MFM, Bowie, Maryland. Pastor Kunle Lapido is signed in but will not be speaking. He's traveling right now. But the chairman of the board, Simiyu Adiniyai, is here. Project manager Balaji Ogundaru. We have our engineer firm, Kim Engineering, Brandon Fritz and Tim Troxler, and our transportation engineer, Mr. Mike Lenhart. We're here to answer any questions. We are in total agreement with staff's recommendation of approval of the preliminary plan of subdivision and the TCP1. The adequacy certificate of adequacy has been issued. And in response to the concerns raised by the one resident that put in the additional backup, this applicant has had numerous outreach meetings, starting with the pre-application meeting, which was advertised, signage, as well as letters mailed out to the public. We had a pre-application meeting November 11th, 2023. But since that time, the applicant has taken an additional step with a very robust community outreach effort, having met in May of 2024, May 31st, July 13th, 2024, and most recently, September 7th, 2024, in which the entire applicant team met with citizens that were concerned. We've actually walked the properties to the north, looked at a stormwater management pond, and addressed and will continue to address any community concerns. We've met with the city of Bowie during the water and sewer category change, and the Bowie City Council approved the water and sewer category change on May 6, 2024, and they were aware and are aware of this proposal. Again, we meet all the standards required, and we ask for approval of the preliminary plan of subdivision, the TCP1, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have. But thank you very much for your time, and I want to thank staff for their thorough review. We've met with many agencies. We've met with the DPI, DPWT, and other agencies, but want to give everyone a big thank you because they looked this proposal over significantly, and we are still working with not only our neighbors, but with other agencies, and have some exciting things that we're going to be bringing to the community. The church has been there, by the way. The church has been there since September of 2004. This is the 20th anniversary, 2024 is the 20th anniversary of this church being located there on 5506 Church Road. So it's not a surprise to anyone. They have been here, and with this new facility will allow them to condense from 2 services on Sunday to 1 service. And so we're very pleased to be able to present this and move forward. They still have a ways to go. I was briefing them on that before they get permits and construction, but we will continue with our robust community outreach. We've had these meetings, and we will continue to have meetings inviting the community. And as far as the one resident that sent the email in, we'll be contacting her and inviting her to our next community meeting, along with all the others that are on our list of over 80 residents, community association in the area. And oh, by the way, a number of the parishioners of Mountain of Fire and Miracles live in Bowie. They may not walk, but they live in Bowie and are very pleased to see this facility move forward. With that, if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
I did have one question, and thank you, Mr. Parker, for commenting on your outreach to the opponent. I'm very familiar with the location of the church, and I'm just curious, is because there is a blind spot when you're coming around that portion of Church Road. So will there be additional part, or how will that be managed? Because if it condenses to 1 service, you've got much more traffic at one time as opposed to 2 different services. So I'm just curious as to how that's being thought about or looked at, and I would be surprised if the local community did not raise that as a potential concern. So
Yes, and they did at a few of the meetings, and we will continue to address the traffic safety issues with having off-duty police officers there during the service hours, 2 hours before and 2 hours afterwards, to make sure traffic moves in and out of the site very safely. Also, with this new expansion of the new facility, there'll be more parking on site. So they will not have people parking off site along the roadway at all. They'll be parked totally in on the site itself.
I'm really glad to hear that, because I have personally driven on that road during kind of a service transition time, and it worried me that there were children and people crossing the street coming upon that blind curve. So I'm grateful that you all are thinking about that, and that's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Washington. Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we have no one who signed up to speak on this. If there's no other questions for the applicants or staff, I will close this public hearing. And commissioners, what is your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23047 and TCP 1-018-2024 and variance to section 25122B1G, along with the conditions as outlined in staff's report.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Parker and Mr. Bartlett. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Final item on our agenda is item 7. This is a remand by the District Council for a detailed site plan, DSP 20002 Jaksun Buddhist Temple. Just a reminder, this case was approved at the Planning Board meeting of September 7, 2023. It was remanded by the District Council on January 25, 2024. So this is let me just talk for a bit about what's before us, okay? This is a somewhat unique case. This body approved detailed site plan 2002 in September 23. Again, the District Council remanded it in January. Remand hearings are required by law to be held within 60 days, although it has been the practice of the Planning Board to allow applicants to request additional time if necessary to comply with the requirements of the remand. Shortly before the 60-day period expired in this case, however, the council issued an order finding there was no authority to extend the 60-day period. The Planning Board, therefore, was not able to act on this remand. In July, the council requested the Planning Board take the additional procedural step of holding a hearing, and adopting a resolution confirming that the board was not able to comply with its prescriptions of the order of remand. On a separate note, as the staff report for this case explains, even if the board had held the hearing within 60 days, there would have not been anything to consider because the applicant didn't submit any documents or take any actions required by the remand order. So here's the bottom line. I will open the hearing now and ask staff to provide its presentation. We'll then hear testimony from the public. But such testimony, please, shall be limited, and any discussion shall be limited to this procedural issue I have just discussed. The only thing that is before us is the remand that the council has requested us to adopt a resolution confirming that we were not able to comply with the prescriptions of the order of remand. That is the only thing before us. So again, only other procedural issue. It may be difficult, but this is not the time to discuss any substantive matter related to the detailed site plan. There's only a hearing on this one procedural issue. We may have folks who are signed up to speak. This is an evidentiary hearing, even on this procedural issue. So I will be swearing folks in. Ms. Scudder, I won't be swearing you in. But we may have other folks. Well, I'll wait. If we have other folks to speak, I'll swear them in at the appropriate time. So we have a staff presentation by Ms. Kosak and maybe Mr. Mitchum as well. Ms. Scudder we'll hear from, who's representing the applicant. And then we'll see if we have other folks to sign up and speak as well. Any procedural questions from commissioners? We're okay? Okay. So with that, I'll turn to Ms. Kosak for the staff presentation on the procedural issue before us. Did I say, Ms. Kosak, this is only the procedural piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Jill Kozak with the Urban Design Section, and I will be taking care of this item today. Item 7, the remand of DSP 20002 for Jaksun Buddhist Temple. Again, due to the procedural issues with this case, staff is recommending the board take no action on the remand of DSP 20002. As the chair already gave a summary of the previous actions on this case, I will skip right to the remand points. So if we could skip to slide 13, please. Thank you. The order of remand from the District Council was issued on January 25th, 2024. It stated the planning board's decision erred as a matter of law on multiple legal errors. First, when it concluded that the proposed development was exempt from a preliminary plan of subdivision approval. Second, when it included a condition for the applicant to submit an approved stormwater management concept plan at time of certification. Third, when the DSP improperly included land of an adjoining property owner. And fourth, in that the board had no evidence that the applicant has the necessary maintenance agreements or arrangements to accommodate overflow parking for large or special events. Shown here are the 4 points of remand from the council's order that were intended to address these errors. Staff notes that as of today, the applicant has not filed a preliminary plan of subdivision, nor submitted a revised or amended DSP addressing these points. Therefore, staff recommends the planning board take no action on the remand, as the applicant did not address the points within the required 60-day period. An amended resolution stating this will be placed on a subsequent hearing date in accordance with section 27290F of the prior zoning ordinance. Next slide, please. With that, the urban design section recommends the planning board adopt the findings in the additional staff memo and take no action on the remand of DSP 20002 for Jiaksan Buddhist Temple and issue an amendment to resolution number 2023-98 with no new conditions. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Kosick. So just so I'm clear, the board is recommending, our staff is recommending that we take action, but the action that we take is to communicate that we are not taking action on the remand.
Yes, I believe it's in accordance with 290F, 27290F, if the board is unable to, I'm sorry, I don't have that section up in front of me at the moment, but if the board is unable to take an action within the 60-day period, it should issue a resolution stating why and the results of that. And so that's what we would be doing.
And so simply our action today, if we take it, would be to communicate, for the board to communicate this to the district council.
Yes.
In the form of a resolution. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Yeah, just following up on that. So it's not that we're trying to not take action. To just be like specific is that we just don't have sufficient time to provide notice and have both like a preliminary plan hearing and a detailed site plan and all these other things that they wanted is my understanding, right? Like it'd be impossible like time-wise to do all this stuff so quickly.
Generally,
go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Jill. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'll let you take it, Mr. Warner.
Not exactly, Commissioner Dorner. That's the argument that the applicant is making, that there wasn't time to do the things that were in the remand order. In this particular case, though, the 60-day period expired without any ability to take any action by us, whether or not they had complied, but they hadn't complied. So this is just confirming that the section that Ms. Kosak read specifically says when the planning board determines that it cannot comply with the prescriptions of an order of remand, they're supposed to adopt a resolution saying so. We sent a letter saying that we can't comply. They're asking us to put it in the form of a resolution. That's all that's occurring at this stage.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's no other questions for staff, I will turn to the applicant, Ms. Scudder. Anything you want to add on this?
Yes. Good morning, Chairman Shapiro, members of the Planning Board and staff. For the record, I am Tracy Scudder. My office address is 4200 Parliament Place, Suite 220 in Lanham, Maryland. This morning, I'm appearing on behalf of the Jiaksan Buddhist Temple on this remand matter, and I'm accompanied by a number of members from the temple. I understand that we're not here to get into the substantive issues of the case, so I will keep my testimony limited, as Chairman Shapiro requested, to the procedural issues on the remand. I did submit a timely letter into the record regarding this matter. I'll get right to the heart of the matter. The spirit of the law underlying the 60-day remand rule is to protect the applicant from undue delay. We know that because it's in the legislative history of the council bill that extended the remand period from 30 days to 60 days. Imagine it used to be 30 days. In my view, such a narrow window to respond to a council remand order signifies that the expectation surely cannot be much more than the planning board taking a second look at particular issues in the case to determine if it committed any errors. That is about as much as can be done in 60 days. We take issue with how the remand order was worded. It contained 4 conditions directing the applicant to do certain things that can't be done. For one, you cannot file a preliminary plan and get it through the planning board's process in 60 days. You cannot revise a DSP and get that revision reviewed and approved in 60 days. And the rest of the issues that the council included weren't even reviewable by the board from a jurisdictional standpoint. I am dumbfounded by the council's order, which directs the applicant to do things that they know good and well can't be done in 60 days. During council oral arguments in this case, the council relayed to the applicant that it didn't want to deny the case, so it was going to send it back to the planning board and give the applicant a chance to address some of the issues that were raised by the opposition parties. But in fact, the council didn't give the applicant an opportunity at all. They set the applicant up for total failure for the reasons I've already mentioned. We are humbly before you this morning, and I say that because this applicant is a charitable organization and they don't have the resources to continue to fight everything that gets thrown at them, from code enforcement complaints that lead to rounds of inspections that led to citations and violations that led to appeals and multiple hearings. Yes, we did that all summer long, and they are just completely tapped out. They still need legal help, and I will continue to stick with them all the way. What we are asking of this board today is to pass a resolution that advises the council that it sent over a defective remand order. The planning board couldn't do anything with that. And based on the latest staff memo that was prepared for this hearing, nothing has changed. The memo from planning staff reaffirms the original review was conducted correctly, no errors were made, and none of the findings that this board previously made have changed. Thus, we ask this board to communicate this determination to the council. We specifically ask for 2 things: that you advise the council that its remand order was defective, and even if it wasn't defective, this board stands behind its original approval resolution in this case. That concludes our presentation, Chairman Shapiro. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scudder. Appreciate that. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? No questions. I'm going to turn to the public. We have a person or 2 who signed up to speak. Mr. Provost or Ms. Provost?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, that's Victor Provost. Okay, if you could state your name and address for the record. And again, Mr. Provost, I know I'm repeating myself, but the only thing before us is not of the substance of the issue, but simply on the communicating a remand in the form of a resolution to the council. That is what's before us. But please introduce yourself for the record. Let me swear you in. I'm sorry, I forgot. If you could raise your right hand, sir. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you, sir, very much. And take it away. The floor is yours. We'll put 3 minutes up on the clock and take it away.
Okay, I'll just be brief. Back last February, March, I was, my wife and myself, we were asked to help the Buddhist deal with this remand. And at that time, there was my wife, myself, the master, and Don, and others from the temple. And we had tried numerous times during that time from February to the time it almost expired, or did expire, in trying to, let's say, deal with these 4 issues on the remand. But it looked like to me on that remand one that I got from the temple, number 3, about the sound, it seemed like to me at that time that somehow that was agreed to, that there would be no loud noise. But anyway, I think there was an attempt at that time to deal with this remand, although we only had 60 days. But I've always thought all along, with or without an attorney, we could have asked for an extension, I believe. But it finally came down to, let's say, the 11th hour when it was about ready to expire, that we had another attorney at that time. Oh, no, not another attorney, but an attorney from Annapolis who we were considering to hire. We asked him to get an extension, but that was on the evening, that very evening, that that this was to expire. I know my time's running out, but I believe we gave it our best we could. I didn't hear at that time the undue or how hard this was not fair, or, well, I believe around the table the Buddhists thought it was unfair. But when I looked at it, my wife looked at it, we thought we could make an attempt on some of these things, the boundary issues or what have you. But,
Listen.
Yeah, I think we made an attempt. And at that time, I got to mention for your information, one of the things that we asked, where is the attorney? And all we heard back was that they were very unhappy with her and that kind of talk. Where is the attorney? We need an attorney, that kind of stuff. And anyway, at that time, we didn't have no attorney, advice or, help us shepherd this thing through. So,
Okay.
But we tried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Provost. I appreciate it. Thank you for your patience today. I know it's been a long day.
Thank you.
So do we have anyone else who signed up to speak on this?
I signed up.
Ms. Johnson, are you trying to log on?
Margaret Songer Webb signed up.
I'm sorry. Ms. Provost, you want to sign? You signed up too?
No, I waived my time.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. So the only other person I have signed up is Leah Johnson. I don't see her online. I'm hearing from staff she may be trying to get on. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Good timing. Saved by the bell. All right, Ms. Johnson, if you could, I'm going to swear you in, okay? Do you solemnly raise your right hand, please? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're going to put 3 minutes on the clock. As I talked to with other folks too, this is not about the substance of the case of the temple. This is just about the procedural issue. What's before us is simply putting what we communicated in an email. The district council is asking us to communicate to that in writing in the form of a resolution. That's the only thing that's before us. I know that feels.
Okay. I'm sorry, sir. Please continue on.
Okay, no, that's it. So the floor is yours. You have up to 3 minutes to speak.
I apologize because I apologize. I didn't hear any of the testimony because I was on the call with a staff person trying to get connected to Yes, so I don't really know what any of my other colleagues have said. I just wanted to log in, and I don't even know how I look on this camera, if I'm too close or not close enough.
No, you look,
But
you
I
look
did
good.
want to
You're doing
just
fine.
thank
You're
you so
representing
much.
well.
Thank you. I just wanted to say though, I thank you all so much for taking your time to listen to our case and to evaluate the temple's plans and to make sure that the temple honors everything that the county expects for the temple to be and do, to be, as far as good neighbors are concerned, to the community around them, and that they should uphold all the laws and all the statutes and all of the policies and procedures that should be in place, and that all the rest of the community has to adhere to. They should also have to adhere to them as well. And also that all the things that were required and requested of them to do at the previous hearings, they have not done yet, and they have not honored yet. So, and I don't think they intend to honor those things. And it's very disheartening to me. One, because I'm literally the next door neighbor, and that they continuously still intend on breaking the rules and breaking the rules that you guys asked for them to not do. One being the using of the property in the back of my house.
Objection. Objection,
Oh,
Chairman Shapiro.
sorry.
I know Ms. Johnson didn't hear you because she was trying to get logged in, but this is supposed to be limited to the procedural issues of the remand.
Okay, no problem at all. So I just would like for the things that they were required to do, that was asked for them to do in the prior hearings, to be adhered to. And at this point in time, they have not done so. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I appreciate it. Thank you
Thank
for your
you so
patience
much.
today. And I'm glad we worked out
Yes.
the technology issue too.
Thank
All right,
you so much, and I appreciate you.
Sure, thank you. I do see one more person on the list who I think is not with the applicants team, Ms. Solner Webb.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
I
I'm going
appreciate you
to
taking that.
swear you in, Ms. Solner Webb. Okay. If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Then you are under oath. Floor is yours. We'll put 3 minutes on the clock. I know it's hard because you have lots of feelings about this, like everybody. But the only thing before us is we're putting a remand notice from the form of an email to the form of a resolution. That's all that's before us.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is Barbara Solner Webb, and I applaud the staff's recommendation to put this application basically in the circular file. And I would like to address Ms. Scudder's arguments that the district, my understanding of, or as I was listening, what I understood her to say, is that the district council's requirements in the remand, as well as DPI asking that the temple conform to the county regulations, is basically harassment, and that therefore the planning board should approve the plan as they incorrectly did last year. And I'd like to make an argument that her arguments are completely fallacious. The original application by the temple is incredibly defective. I spent quite a while going over this, and my comments on their original application were ironically incredibly similar to what the district council and their advisor, wonderful attorney Stan Brown, said was defective in this plan, and then that they required corrections of this in the remand. So it's not that the district council is in any way harassing the applicant with asking for crazy requirements in the remand. They're just asking it to be a decent application. And if the application wasn't reasonable in the first place, okay, and it maybe takes more than 60 days to make it reasonable, well, the county shouldn't have to wait for that. They should have done the application correctly in the first place. Similarly, Ms. Scudder suggesting or implying that DPI giving citations to the temple is harassment. They have bent over backwards to try to get the temple to follow the county noise, health regs, etc. Requirements, and the temple kept continually violating it, or them. So eventually DPI, started giving citations. But why shouldn't the county regulations be followed? That's what county regulations are there for. Just because the temple or this group claims to be a temple and does things that violate what the county requires should not let them off scot-free. So I feel that Ms. Scudder's argument against the deep sixing or following the remand requirements are completely fallacious, and I recommend that you end this application.
Thank you, Ms. Sonner-Webb. I appreciate that. Do we have anyone else from the public who has signed up to speak besides members of the applicant's team? I don't see anyone on the list. All right, I'm going to turn back to the applicant to give you a final word, Ms. Scudder. You know what I've said a million times, which is the only thing that's before us is the remand, converting this from an email to the form of resolution, but the floor is yours.
Thank you. In response to Ms. Sonner-Webb's comments, I never used the word harassment. And I guess I would just say that, all of those citations that were issued over the summer were dismissed, or, the fines were reduced down because those things we appealed and they were dismissed. So that's the final thing I would say. Chairman Shapiro, I believe that, the council knew when they sent that remand order over that what they were directing the applicant to do was impossible. They didn't want to deny the case, but, they pretty much set the applicant up for failure. And I think that it would just be wrong for the planning board to accept an application, a remand order that is, defective from the start. I mean, every condition in the remand order was impossible to fulfill. And, even from a jurisdictional standpoint, they put things in there that, this board couldn't possibly have enforced. So again, I'm not really asking for anything other than what I think you all were already planning to do anyway, which was send back over a communication to the council that you were taking no action. I'm just asking you to take a step further and communicate also to them that in your view, this remand order could not have been fulfilled in 60 days.
Thank you, Ms. Scudder. I appreciate that. Commissioners, if there's no other questions for the applicant or staff, I'm going to close this public hearing. Ms. Sonner-Webb,
may I make one comment? Still,
we have a process that's in place. If your
something of what Ms. Scudder said is completely wrong. I'd like to correct it for the record.
If you go again, I'm going to have Ms. If you go again, I'm going to have Ms. Scudder go again, but she gets the final word, Ms. Sonner-Webb.
Okay, just that she said that everything that DPI has complained about has been thrown out. Well, why is there going to be a hearing in November then that we have already been told we should come to and be prepared about because of all of the unfulfilled problems that DPI has cited against the temple? The county wouldn't be holding a hearing if there was nothing.
Thank you, Ms. Sonner-Webb. Ms. Scudder, back to you for the final word.
I'm not aware of that at all, but I do know that DPI has, the temple has tried to fulfill their Anything that the DPI inspectors told them to do as far as applying for permits, they have done that. They have pending permits right now that they can't get approved until the DSP is approved. So, they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place, because on one hand, the community wanted them to cure all violations, but in order to cure the violations, this detailed site plan has to be approved. So I don't know how they get out of this fix they're in. But that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. So with that, commissioners, unless there's any other questions for the applicant or staff, I'm going to close this public hearing. We have before us a resolution which is basically converting an email to a resolution. I know there's lots of feelings around this on all sides, but what's before us is fairly straightforward. Commissioners, what is your pleasure on this item?
Oh, sorry. Just could I interrupt real quickly?
Yes,
the resolution will come back for your approval. You don't have the resolution before you, but the decision is what you'll be making the motion on, right?
All right. So the resolution will come to us on the consent agenda on the next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings detailed in staff's report, that no action be taken on this remand, and as such approve an amendment to PGC PB 2023-98, conveying that no action was taken.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, second by Commissioner Dorner. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. Ms. Solner-Webb, Mr. Provost, Ms. Scudder, thank you all very much. Mr. Warner, Ms. Kosak, everybody. I don't believe we have any further business before us unless I hear otherwise from staff. Ms. Connor, anything to add?
No, that would conclude our agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Connor. Then without objection, commissioners, this meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.